Today on the channel I'm going to be talking about the 1995 Family Adventure classic, Male Birth Control. Jumanji. It's funny, so I actually have not seen this movie for about easily 15 years. I used to watch it all the time as a kid, I loved it when it first came out. And it's one of those movies where, I put it on because it's currently streaming on Hulu. And when I put it on, I thought to myself, I'm just going to watch maybe 20, 30 minutes of this, and I'll probably get bored and turn it off. But that actually wasn't the case. I put it on and I just kind of melted into my chair and I couldn't stop watching. I couldn't believe how hypnotic and how much it still holds up to this day. At least not in the terms of CGI. I mean, clearly the CGI is completely dated and the most dated part of the movie. But aside from the poor CGI, I thought the acting was amazing. I thought the story was overall great, and I thought the visuals were wonderful. And just what I was also surprised by is how dark this movie is at times. I mean, there's once Alan Parrish disappears, there's the whole rumors and the theories his dad chopped him up in little pieces and put him in the wall. Then there's the whole weird psychological abuse thing that Kirsten Dunst character does with telling all these lies, compulsive lies constantly. So I thought that was kind of strange. It's I didn't really catch on to that too much as a kid. And I just think this movie has just such a great overall cast. I mean, you have the legendary and late Robin Williams, rest in peace. You have Bonnie Hunt, swing! Young Kirsten Dunst, one of her first movies. And I have to say, an honorable mention to Jonathan Hyde. I mean, I feel like this is one of those guys that you saw in quite a few movies in the 90s. I mean, one of the things that I remember most from was, him playing Cadbury, Macaulay Culkin's butler on Richie Rich, and then he went on to play, what's his name? Oh yeah, that's right, he played Bruce Ismay on Titanic. Yeah, I knew he was on Titanic, I just couldn't place the name, but yeah. And what's funny about this movie, I mean, it starts off, 1869, where it shows those two kids burying the board game Jumanji. And what I find fascinating is, there's no really explanation or an origin story to where Jumanji even comes from. I'm not even sure what that means, maybe I'll put it in a subtitle after I edit this. But yeah, it's just kind of here's these kids, 1869, they dump a board game in the middle of the woods. I mean, at least the middle of the woods at the time in 1869, and then, they bury it. They go away, and then so Alan discovers it at a construction site, and he just doesn't really, I don't know, it's just what is, where does it even come from? Why? I mean, clearly it's some type of, I mean, it's more than a board game. There's a mystical, dark power to it, a dark evil force. It kind of just pulls out these, this past psychological trauma from whoever plays the game. I mean, because, when Alan Parrish plays it, he has, the Hunter from the Darkest Wild will make you feel just like a child, Van Pelt, and clearly Van Pelt is played by the same guy that plays his dad, so I feel psychologically that's supposed to be playing one of his darkest fears is or not just darkest fears, but just, the troubled relationship with his father, in the beginning of the movie at least. I just thought it was such a strange, time to choose, 1969, 100 years later after the board game is buried, because to me it doesn't seem like it's 1969. To me it almost looks more, I mean, maybe it's just because the movie's supposed to take place in New Hampshire. I mean, it was filmed in New Hampshire and parts of British Columbia, Canada. But when it goes to 1969 and it shows Alan riding his bike and he's dressed like a fucking senior citizen that, has no fashion sense, which is pretty much all of them. But it looks to me it's almost more so the 1920s or 30s, and even the way his father presents himself, smoking the pipe tobacco at work or whatever, it just doesn't seem like it's the late 60s. It seems a little bit post-Victorian era, but I mean, whatever, that's what's, I guess, is good about this film. It kind of ties in a bunch of interesting time periods, and it does mess a lot with time travel too, which I didn't even really notice or think about until I, rewatched it last night for the first time in, 15 years. But yeah, there's so many interesting characters in this film. I mean, you have young Alan anyways, who's this overprivileged fat little piece of shit who just, is kind of oh my god, I can't believe my dad wants to send me to this boarding school. He actually wants a good education for me. And at least his dad's not even yelling at him too. He's actually being he's being stern, but I mean, he should be. he's being stern, but he's also being like a legitimate human being, and like he's just a caring father, you know, so fuck him for trying to, you know, make sure his son gets a good education. And then his mom, played by Patricia Clarkson, swing! I didn't really like her. I mean, it's not that she was like a bad person, I just thought she was really boring, she lacked emotion, and it just didn't really seem like she gave a fuck that her son came home with like a black eye. I mean, like, yeah, she makes a comment, but she doesn't really seem overly concerned. It almost seems like she's more concerned about Sam coming home and beating her. But, you know, some women like that. Just kidding. I'm just kidding, okay? It's a joke. It's a joke. And then, yeah, I can't remember the actor's name, but I do like the relationship between Carl and Alan, you know, Soul Man as I refer to him as, which is pretty impressive when he shows him like the model of the shoe that he's gonna show his father, like with that appointment, but then the shoe unfortunately goes through the conveyor belt, so. But yeah, rewatching this movie last night for the first time in several years, what I really loved, at least in my opinion, I mean, like, it's subjective to every single movie viewer, but I thought the pacing was amazing. I mean, I didn't get bored for like 1 minute watching the movie. I mean, it's like 1 hour and 44 minutes, I believe, and it flew by really quick. And what's funny is, I mean, like, I think this is just kind of a normal thing when you see certain movies as a kid and then you see them as an adult. They seem a lot shorter than they used to feel. Like, this movie used to feel like it was like 2.5 hours long, you know? But anyways, like, not only do I feel like the movie had such a consistent drive to it and like good pacing, but I just loved how many different elements are in this movie. I mean, you have, you know, you're dealing with elements of time travel, action, adventure, and thanks to Robin Williams, you know, on-screen presence and just his overall vibe, you get elements of comedy too. And this is actually one of the few movies where Robin Williams wasn't really allowed to use improvisation like he does in most of his movies. I guess the only times he was doing improv was when he was interacting with Bonnie Hunt's character, being Sarah Whittle. Which I gotta say, she's actually one of my favorite characters because I just love that part where, like, Alan gets pissed off about like the board game getting flown away like by a pelican, and he's, you know, he blames it on Peter just because he,
why did you grab the game, Peter? Just ignore.
I don't know, just had to blame it on someone, because that's what you do when something happens. Don't blame yourself, blame someone else. It's way better. But I just like how she's like, don't worry about him, honey, he's a Libra.
Just ignore him, honey, he's a Libra. Where are you going?
So I can respect that because I'm someone who's very fond of astrology. I mean, now, do I live my life by it? No, but I think it's a great icebreaker, and you can tell a lot by a person when you ask what their sign is. And, you know, I've heard pieces of shit human beings be like, I'm not gonna disclose that because I'm soulless and should kill myself. I mean, not really, you don't kill yourself. I'm just saying I have a dark sense of humor. What do you want from me? I completely forgot that this is actually loosely based off a picture book from 1981. And it's funny because I have like strong memories of reading this book when I was about in 3rd grade, and I still remember too my teacher teaching me the meaning of the word determined, because there's a part in the book where it's like Alan was determined to run away, and I remember she was, you know, my teacher, Mrs. Williams, Eileen Williams, if you're out there, probably not, you're probably dead because you were pretty old back then even. But I thought they did a really good job at making the animals in this movie look exactly like they do in the book. So when it comes to flame-throwing outfit category in this movie, I have to give it hands down to Sam Parrish. You know, Alan's dad. I mean, he's fucking flame-throwing. He's got the nice outfit on, you know, he's got his short hair. He smokes a pipe, so he's cool already in my book, and he's preparing his speech, you know, and so in my opinion, it just seems like he's trying to work on his tight five for an open mic stand-up comedy, but of course he's... But in 2nd place for flame-throwing category, you gotta give it to, you know, I can't remember her name. I mean, I know she plays Frasier's ex-wife, like Baby something, but Aunt Nora in this movie, by the way, mega swing! But yeah, I just love her elegant nature. You know, I almost forgot to mention too, it was directed by Joe Johnston, and Joe Johnston directed one of my personal favorite movies, which is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, so I'm gonna definitely have to, that's another movie that I haven't seen in probably like about the same amount of time, 20 odd years, so I might have to do either a review or a reaction. But yeah, I think what's great about this movie overall is that it's one of those films that doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's still striking to watch and fun to watch. And it's a little bit different than most family films, I guess, just because, you know, like I said, I just love that little bit of darkness that's added to it, but it's not too much. Or Anyways, thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button.
Thank you!